Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Anything Wrestling Podcast. Thank you once again for joining us. Today we have a very special episode. We got a triple threat going. It is the Shant, Dan, the man. The man.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is the Commish. I will be the advocate of this episode, and I am more than proud to introduce the fact that the top 10 of all top 10s will be revealed today.
You guys should buckle in, because this is gonna be a ride. I don't know if it'll be bumpy, but it's gonna be a ride.
Go on to your fast lane.
That clusterfuck of a fast lane.
Today's episode is sponsored by
Sprite.
That's it? That's all you got?
Literally, that's all I got.
And, world's finest chocolate. When you gotta do a fundraiser, grab some of the world's finest.
Or just make your kids do it.
That's true. And stand in parking lots harassing people.
Very well. You know, with some of the greatest beverages and some of the greatest snacks in the world, you can enjoy all your favorite WWE programming only on the WWE Network for a non-negotiable but very reasonable price of only $9.99.
$9.99.
It's not $10.
It's not $1,000.
Not $1 million man dollars.
But $9.99.
He had one of the best themes, I think. Of
Man,
all
I
time.
love Ted DiBiase.
That era, everybody had a great theme.
But again, you have to give credit to where it's due to Jim Johnson for that.
Let me bring that up for just half a second, because recently he revealed the only reason why he left is because CFOS, those new guys who are doing all their production.
CFO dollar sign?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're being given all the work, and Jim Johnson was just hanging around, not doing much.
So they just kind of stopped giving him assignments?
Well, Jim Johnson was like, if you're not going to give me anything to do, just let me go.
So I can go do other things.
And he's like, AEW, give me a call.
Oh shit. They gonna have some Jim Johnston up in that bitch.
So the thing is,
I don't mind CFO dollar sign though.
They're great.
They got some good shit.
But did you really have
did.
to let Jim Johnson go? This guy was like,
yeah, they kind of fucked.
he
that
kind
one
of made your childhood if you think about
up.
it.
He's responsible for a lot of the most iconic themes.
very true, very true. But didn't Jimmy Hart also have something to do with theme
Jimmy
songs
Hart
as well?
is right up there.
The thing is like, you know a theme song by Jim Johnson. Now that it's like, if your man over there happens to go to the Elite, he can provide a lot of talented wrestlers even better theme songs than what they already have.
Yeah.
because a lot of your indie themes are trash.
Yeah.
Like they're just
Yeah,
really
or-
generic stuff.
Yeah.
It
or
sounds
it's
like custom
oh,
soundtracks on 2K19.
But not even that. It's like, I got this CD, this one song I ride in my car with. Yeah, just play that.
It's like karaoke tracks.
Well, you guys remember that when The Rock used to wrestle in dark matches, he would come out to like Tupac's All Eyes on Me, and Vince told him, you better have something that's censored of that. And even then he had to come out to that. So it's like, no, thank God for Jim Johnson for making him a theme, even if the Maya Villa theme was just the worst.
If you smell what
Just
the
don't pull a
rock
DDP.
is cooking.
Oh, ripping off Nirvana in a way. Even
I
though
can't
it's
see
not
a similarity.
Oh man.
WCW never had the best of theme songs. I mean, some of them were.
Wolfpack.
The NWO one. Which NWO's one is only like, what, 4 ripped versions of a Jimi Hendrix song mashed into one? That was genius.
So, speaking of theme songs, a small segue. You ever see Black Hawk Down?
Yeah.
I think this, because I think that's also Hendrix, right?
Yeah.
The one that Hogan used.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was not familiar with the song except for it being Hogan's theme song.
Right, yeah.
And then I was watching Black Hawk Down, and I heard that come in too, and I went, "What the fuck is going on?" And that's when I learned that it was
Jimi
a Hendrix song.
Yeah.
But it was still a little jarring to have a professional wrestling theme song in a war movie.
Granted that the war movie is preliminary first, but still. We really segued out of this whole fucking
Well,
thing.
that's the intention of this podcast.
Anything.
Anything wrestling.
Including Black Hawk Down.
Yes. Anyway, we have a rather extensive episode today because myself and the entire crew have put together a top 10 pay-per-view list. Basically meaning these are our top 10 pay-per-views.
Like
Ranking
our personal favorites.
Of all time.
from 10 to 1. And I can tell you right now that you can catch every single one of these pay-per-views only on the WWE Network for a non-negotiable, very reasonable price of only $9.99.
But you know those bubbles that let you jump to the matches?
Yeah.
I know at least on my list, some of those bubbles have been deleted. So you guys might have to scroll through.
Or just press the fast forward button
Yeah.
until the great thing gets to where you want it to be. Anyway, so we're gonna just because we got about 30 pay-per-views to get through, we're gonna set a timer for 3 minutes.
Wait. Did someone just say 3 minutes?
HLA.
God, that was the best, worst segment ever.
Oh, Jerry Lawler popping an orgasm.
Ew.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the worst sentences I've ever heard in my life.
Well, he had binoculars for crying out loud.
That's true.
And keep in mind the age difference. Anyway.
Puppies!
Oh, it's the No Cell Pedigree 12-second match.
Yes, by the way, because we're at a location where we like to record, I have control of the WWE Network, and my number one is playing in the background.
For only $9.99.
You'll know what it is by the end of this, but if you know his reference, because if you are a true mark of this wrestling thing we love to talk about, you'll know what he just referenced.
They literally told him backstage, please sell the pedigree. He's like,
Nope.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm solid.
Well, anyway, we got our timer. How do we want to do this? How do we want to start? Do we have a...
You're the
You're the host.
big
Okay,
dog.
I'll start off and then we'll
Okay.
go clockwise.
So ready?
Let's go. So my number 10 is Survivor Series 2017. This was the much more recent Survivor Series that I actually enjoyed because as of recent, all their pay-per-views have just been This was the card that gave us AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar, which was an amazing match. The final match, the Raw versus SmackDown, where Triple H goes rogue for about, longer than this match between Warrior and Triple H. But then,
Wait. He was Hunter Hearst Helmsley then.
HHH, Blue Blood,
Yeah.
Ode to Joy.
Yeah.
And on this card also we had Asuka, who was like the one person on her team, and she eliminated like 4 people. And this is when Asuka was still the Empress of
When she was
Tomorrow.
still Asuka.
She was still undefeated at this point.
When nobody was ready for her.
Exactly.
And there were no teriyaki jokes.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I just felt like this Survivor Series just kind of hit for me. I think it was also the element of watching it live as it was happening. So this is my number 10.
Yeah.
It's a good. I mean, I like the event myself. I mean, just seeing Triple H like in Survivor Series matches is always interesting. The fact that he went rogue just had me like, what the fuck are you doing?
I actually saw it.
Speaking of which, I'm not selling it. Focus, guys. Focus.
Sorry.
It's a bad match, guys. You'll see why when we review it at the end.
That's so funny.
Don't you have a
Alright.
question for Warrior?
Why couldn't you just sell the damn move?
So yeah, that's my entry. If we want to move on to your number 10, you can restart the timer and we can go ahead.
So go ahead. So my number 10 is Survivor Series 1999.
Ooh.
The reason that I chose this one is because this takes me back to right when I started actively watching. So this is, I think, the first pay-per-view that I have like a clear memory of watching.
Okay.
And so this is
This
the one that kind of set a lot of things in motion.
For the predominant rise of the Attitude Era and one of the greatest storylines as well because it lasted so long.
Yeah.
But don't forget, he did it for The Rock.
Yeah, and so
He did it for the people.
So you got Stone Cold getting hit by the car, being put on the shelf to have surgery.
You saw McMahon legitimately actually giving a damn about Austin.
But yeah, just I mean, this was a good show for me looking back. You had the debut of Kurt Angle. You had Big Show, Triple H, and The Rock for the WWF title at
That
the
was a
time.
good match. I like that match.
Can I ask you about that? Because a lot of people were actually pissed off that Austin was advertised as he's going to compete, and then exit Austin, enter Big Show. Like, did you remember as a child maybe being pissed about that? Because that's actually one match that we never got to saw was Austin, Rock, and Triple H all in the ring at the same time.
Huh.
And it's not like where two would be partners against one or the other way.
It's every man for himself.
For once, but I don't think in history we ever got
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't think I was, because I think I was engrossed in the storytelling at the time.
Okay.
And so you had that drama of, oh God, Stone Cold Steve Austin's he's out. And The Rock was my favorite wrestler, like from the get-go. So,
I think the one thing that bugged me about that was the fact that it's like, okay, this is like Austin, like he had been one of my favorites at the time, and it's like just took him out of the main event. Come on. And I thought it was storyline, but the fact that it was a legitimate neck injury, I'm like,
Right.
damn, that kind of sucks that I cared more about the fact that he didn't wrestle
yeah.
than his lively.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff that happened on that show. Decent amount of time given to most of the matches. Big Show defeating Big Boss Man, Mitty and Prince Albert and Viscera in a 1-on-4 Survivor Series elimination
Oh,
match.
that's a cluster.
Super cluster fuck there.
So that's number 10 for me.
Alright.
Reset that timer. Commish, you're number 10.
SummerSlam 98, The Highway to Hell.
Ooh.
So much happened in that pay-per-view that I remember. The hair versus hair match between Jeff Jarrett and X-Pac. The fact that The Fink got his little revenge on Jeff Jarrett because of that. It was supposed to be a tag team match. It was, the New Age Outlaws versus Mankind only.
Yep.
Because Kane, just wasn't anywhere to be found, supposedly. But Austin and Taker, I swear that was one of my favorite matches between the two, just because it's are you passing the torch as the Undertaker, telling him you really are the man now or not? And then just seeing the build up of the story between them, I always loved that.
And that package, the Highway to Hell package, that thing gets me pumped up every time I watch it.
Everything was so sequential, in order. I was just
Yeah.
holy shit, this is very well worth the time to invest in.
Yeah.
And that was also the height of Undertaker's career too, as well, because he had just gotten off one of the greatest Hell in a Cell matches a couple months before that.
Yeah.
Did that promo happen where he's like, everyone's gotten their opportunity, I haven't gotten mine? Where he comes out
No, that promo was after.
It was after.
That
Okay.
was months after.
Okay.
But I remember that promo where it wasn't Undertaker, it was
Mark Calloway. Yep.
and he never really breaks character, not until recent. I kind of find it weird when he breaks character.
Yeah.
It's
You're not used to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about this or if it was just something that I read, but I think the article that I came across said that once the Undertaker had gone to the American Badass gimmick, he didn't want to go back to the
yep.
Dead Man gimmick, and then they were like, "Well, no, just do it. Let's just see just do it. It'll be okay." And he hasn't gone back since.
Well, I mean, okay. Do you guys feel like if he had kept as the American Badass, would it have worked out to this day?
No.
Because he's put on more legendary matches as the Dead Man after American
Exactly.
Badass.
To me, Undertaker will always be Dead Man. He won't be American Badass.
Or Big Evil.
Yeah.
I think from an iconic history-making standpoint, I agree that the Dead Man has been more impactful and has had more significant moments in the history of wrestling.
Yeah.
It just,
Speaking of,
but here, okay, so let me ask you this, right as we're running out of time to go to the next one. Do you feel the first part of Dead Man career was better, or do you feel like the second half was better? Leave American Badass right where it is,
That's sort of
The
your
first-
central point, and then which side we think
Yeah.
is better.
I experienced the second half like live, like that's when I actively watched. So that for me is when
That'd
but-
be yours.
Yeah, but had I watched him actively back in the early '90s, my answer would have maybe been different. So it's for me, it's kind of like
I
yours?
would say the more recent stuff. I think partially because of what he said. I know that the early part of his career, a lot of people gravitate toward that too. So I mean, I'm not taking anything away from it.
I know, but here's the thing, and this is where you guys will find it odd because technically, other than being the older one of this group, I would lean more towards the second half.
okay.
Knowing that I grew up when he was like, you know, in the black and gray, converting to the black and purple, the whole thing that he was dead, he was buried alive. Seeing him in the second half as the dead man, he looked more fierce, more aggressive. Like he took the big evil part of American Badass and put that in sequential.
Folded them together.
Exactly.
I-
Which made him a better, phenom, dead man.
Yeah.
And
Undertaker.
And I think that part of that definitely, with time and practice makes perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
I think that's a contributing factor here is that you had that experience as the Undertaker, the experience as Big Evil, and then finally you were like, all right, we saw all the things that worked. Let's put them together. Because I think Mark is he's got to be one of the smartest guys in this industry.
Oh, yeah.
So
Someone who just keeps on evolving his character.
yeah,
And he
knows
and-
what he's doing.
Moving on now to our number 9s. Sean, what is your number?
My number 9 is Judgment Day 2003. This card for me had the stretcher match between Big Show and Brock Lesnar, which Brock being a face and kind of being like, Big Show, you want to pick on Rey Mysterio, pick on somebody your own size, come on. And just was a straight up killer in this match. You also had Roddy Piper versus Mr. America, which to me is like, it's the best thing in the world.
I think Mr. America is the best goddamn wrestler ever.
I just don't know who was under that mask.
It's still a mystery. I mean, the theme song,
The look,
the
the tan.
We may never know.
I'm just saying, like, it felt like something out of the 80s for a second.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
We all know who it is. Come on.
The man even took a lie detector test.
All I can say is he was a real American.
Yeah.
Mr. America.
Yeah.
You also had a ladder match, Eddie Guerrero and Tajiri versus
Ooh. Was
the world's greatest tag team,
Yeah.
Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Awesome match. It's just one of those cards where the beginning match does what it's supposed to do, the middle matches do what they're supposed to do, and the main event does what it's supposed to do. You also had Kevin Nash versus Triple H, which ended in a no contest, but Kevin Nash just drives Triple H through a table, and I'm like, that's
But it's
badass.
the thing of seeing those two together in a match. I think, okay, because no one had seen it as Nash versus Triple H. It was back in the day, Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Diesel.
Yep.
Seeing them and what they have evolved at that point, that's what I liked about that match. Like, they were going at it. It's something fans wanted to see for years, and,
Yeah.
and I hated that it ended in no contest. I wanted to see who was the better.
That's what
Doesn't matter how it was booked. You could change the booking at the very end, like always. But I would have loved to see who would have been the better.
Right. So that's my number 9.
You have anything else to contribute?
They also had the Austin and Eric Bischoff segments in the background.
Yeah.
Oh god, those are great.
No, it was a solid show. Like you said, a lot of history with a lot of the matches, and like anything with Eddie was always good for me.
Yes.
So moving on to Dan's number 9, we got
WrestleMania 2000.
ooh the McMahon versus McMahon versus
Versus McMahon.
McMahon versus McMahon.
And triangle ladder match.
So the big things here: the triangle ladder match, the 2 out of 3 falls for the IC and the European titles.
Who was that match between?
It was Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, and Stevie Richards.
Thank you.
So bad we can't mention them.
Stevie picking up the first fall for the Intercontinental title. Jericho with the second, taking the second belt off of Kurt.
Keep in mind he was the only one to have both
Both,
those belts together. True Intercontinental champion.
Right.
And so then you had Triple H picking up the win over The Rock, Mick Foley, and Big Show, and that just the story leading into that match and into this pay-per-view is really what sold it for me. And the fucking clusterfuck hardcore battle royal,
which got botched.
Oh,
so
man.
bad.
That mess of a match, but Jesus Christ, if it wasn't funny.
So here's my thing with that pay-per-view. Even though some critics dubbed that as one of the worst pay-per-views audience-wise, it's just funny to watch. Like, and kind of good. Not like WrestleMania 9 bad.
Johnny Gonzalez. But Dan, did you feel like you were kind of disappointed because The Rock finally wins the Royal Rumble, gets that, story to
Like, you're the
WrestleMania,
man.
but then loses because McMahon turns on him? Did you ever feel like, no, that was The Rock's moment to finally win the title in the main event?
I think I was able to
You were
deal
so
with
invested?
it because there was good story.
Okay,
I've always been a really story-oriented person.
right.
And so for the build up to that match and everything involved, and then for it to go down the way that it did, I think I was pissed at the end of the match, but for the right reasons.
I remember I was pissed at the match just because it's like typical McMahon type move from Vince to do this, even though like I knew it was coming. Like, don't get me wrong, I thought the match was okay, it was good, but I was just like, this is where we're going with the story, really? You couldn't just give him his moment?
But then you enter Backlash, which...
Oh, Backlash was way better, though.
Oh, my God. That Stone Cold pop just coming out, blasting everyone with chairs, and The Rock finally winning. Austin towing the X Express.
Dude, like...
The stuff they would do on regular pay-per-views was just insane.
So, moving forward, right?
Any other comments?
No, I'm good.
Moving forward to my number 9, and this is what kind of has brought me back to being full-time on this podcast, WrestleMania 31.
Ooh, you got me. You got me.
The reason why I picked this one is because, again, there was something about the intrigue about Seth Rollins at this pay-per-view. I was just like, okay, I'm going to keep watching this. But, like, the Intercontinental Championship ladder match, Daniel Bryan just going up against, like, 6 of the best at that point. I love that. The whole match between Randy Orton and Seth itself was pretty good as well. The thing that brought me into it, the nostalgia factor. Triple H versus Sting. JBL commentating the whole end of WCW versus WWE. I was like, dude, you are super biased as fuck, but shut the hell up. I was kind of disappointed with the Undertaker match. Just because it sucked that he was hurt and wrestling hurt. Because imagine if he was 100% healthy.
Was he
against
hurt
Bray
or
Wyatt.
was Bray Wyatt hurt?
Undertaker was hurt, I think.
Bray had a bum ankle.
Someone was hurt.
It was
I
Bray.
forgot
He
who. Okay.
hurt it riding an ATV, if I recall correctly, about a week or two before the actual pay-per-view. Yeah, and then he still went out there and had a really awkward match because he couldn't really move. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the things people were looking forward to, was seeing the surprisingly athletic Bray Wyatt versus basically the OG Supernatural, and it just turned into a fucking waste of a match. And I mean, I don't wanna blame Bray, but it's Bray's fault.
It was. Let's be real about it.
If you're going on an ATV a week before the biggest pay-per-view of the year, well, then you're kind of asking for trouble.
Don't do dumb shit.
And that pay-per-view was also, unfortunately, the beginning of a Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar
17-year feud.
Seriously. But that was the first time you see those two actually like have the chemistry of what they were gonna build for years to come. Just the way it ended, though, the fact that Roman went over for like a few seconds, and then Seth's right there, like just running. You see him gunning down that long ass aisle. You're like, what the? No way, he's cashing in right now.
This one almost made it onto my list because of the main event alone. Because we had talked about this.
Yes.
And I thought that the way that they handled Roman, I thought it was brilliant. He got his ass kicked just the right way on this pay-per-view, which I'm sure we'll touch back on that when we get up here.
Yeah, I'm holding back because
But-
you caught me early on. So.
But it almost made it on my list. Just some of the rest of the card just disqualified it for me. But no, still,
I can understand why, though.
I think it was still a solid show overall.
So those are our number 9s. Now moving on to the illustrious number 8, the hateful 8.
8.5.
Shot your number 8.
My number 8 is ECW One Night Stand 2005.
God, I almost made it to my list.
I mean, here's the thing. With the exception of my top 3, you can jumble these up probably in different orders. I was just kind of approximating. The thing with me was I was never an ECW born and bred. So while the whole pay-per-view was great and it was overseen by Paul Heyman and it was full balls out ECW, they weren't pulling back. You had chair shots to the head, you had blood, you had fire, you had gore, you had everything. It's one of those things where you can take a non-wrestling fan and go, you don't have to know any of these characters, just watch the show. Just press play and
So
just
here's
watch.
the thing, because you didn't really grow up in the ECW era.
It kind of debunked it as number 8. Because if I but if I was a full born and bred ECW fan, this would have been
Number 1
number 3
practically?
or number 2. No, number 1 will always be number 1.
No,
on
I
my
know,
list,
but it'd be up there in your top
it'd be
3.
up there in top 3. Yep.
Did you ever grow up in the era of ECW by any
Not
chance?
really.
Okay. So being that I have seen that come back in 05, I'm like, okay. I had my speculation. Is this going to be what I remember ECW events being? Or is this watered down WWE? No. It literally was how Paul Heyman used to run his shows. It was violent. It was insanity. It was everything that I remember as an ECW pay-per-view. And it's literally like the whole thing with the crowd. ECW.
That's what you call a crowd, not today's
And
people.
the thing with that, it's like, so those matches were always like that. And then the funnier thing was their TV shows were like that too. So like their Monday nights or whatever, like it was just like that as well. So like seeing that again at that year, I was just like, holy shit, I'm back in the glory of what ECW was. But then
what
it
happened?
ruined it the year later with 06. Not to say the card wasn't great, but it wasn't the same.
And then what do we get?
WWE presents
WWE CW.
Yep. But yeah, that's my number 8.
Any more to add, or
No, I'm good on that one. I think it was a good representation of what ECW was supposed to be, and like you said, it then got
I think
bastardized.
that should have been the death sentence.
Right there.
You do 05,
That's
don't
it.
touch ECW.
That's why it was called One Night Stand, assholes.
Until next time.
Once in a lifetime.
Once in a lifetime, yep.
your next.
So I got Unforgiven 2008. And the reason I've got Unforgiven 2008 is because I'm biased and I want to see the championship scramble match.
No, God.
So
Why that match?
because I like that match. I like the drama of it. Mostly because of the WWE Championship match that year. So that was when they were kind of building that can Jeff Hardy win the big one
Right.
storyline.
Yep.
And I had always liked Jeff. I liked Jeff more than I liked Matt. And you had
Even
that.
better than Matt Hardy version 1.
Yes.
Or
Oh yeah.
what about the broken Matt
He
Hardy?
didn't exist yet. So
I knew he didn't.
Jeff Hardy gets a if I'm remembering the last couple seconds properly, Jeff hits a swanton, gets the pin. There's like 8 seconds left, and he gets hit with a pedigree, and Triple H wins the match.
Of course.
And you're like, "Oh, you motherfucker!"
Like, you ruined it.
You ruined it, damn it, you ruined it.
But so you had 3 of these matches. It ended with the World Heavyweight Championship one, but that WWE Scramble match was fucking amazing. Then you had Shawn and Jericho in the unsanctioned match.
Ooh, that was good.
Legacy,
always know how to put
Legacy
on
was
feud.
there. And then you had your dark match, which was Evan Bourne and John Morrison, which I don't know if you got to see. I think it was on Heat or whatever the hell they were using at the time.
Yeah.
I think
Heat
was
in
almost
2008.
So the thing with that's what brings me to what I liked about that pay per view, Shawn versus Jericho, because again, that's the whole thing of Jericho. Hey, I've always been a fan of yours. You're the reason why I'm here, but yet I'm the man. I'm Mr. Ego. I'm what you used to be, and to see them go at it was always like, holy fuck, I have to watch this.
I think that was probably Jericho's most intricate time as being a WWE superstar. The list and the whole Kevin Owens thing comes at a very, very close, but that's when Chris was like...
But the thing is, and that's the thing that makes him one of the greatest of all time, is because he's always found a way to evolve and reinvent himself, not just for the audience, but for the prior audiences to always be like, okay, you're still who I remember you being.
Yeah.
And that's what's always going to live on with Jericho.
Right.
50 Shades of Jericho.
Yes. Anything else to add to this one?
No.
All right. So moving to my number 8, Royal Rumble 98. This one has... Okay, so I've always been a fan of the Royal Rumble. And this was my favorite just because of the fact that it's Austin's turn. And we're not getting like bullshit from Austin. We're getting like, hey, I'm a marked man. I'm the guy you want to beat, but you're not. And I'm going to prove that I'm going to WrestleMania no matter what. The whole build-up, the story, everything. The fact that like he surprised everybody coming from the back instead of like, all right, I'm going to come in from the front. Were you expecting me? He starts throwing people out, left, right, left. And... that's more buildup of Rock Austin because they were the last two.
Right.
And then the whole thing with like Shawn and Undertaker continuing their rivalry back from 97.
Casket match.
The fact that Kane set it on fire, even though we know there was a trap shoot somewhere, or Undertaker probably slid under the ring before the casket got moved. All of that was perfect. All of it. I love that pay-per-view so much just because it's like... it led up to, like, I think, not the greatest or one of the greatest WrestleManias, but a good WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Because you got to see Austin go over. Yeah, Shawn had to leave. Like, that was one thing that sucked for me. But you got a lot out of what came forward. You got to see the true Austin 316 era evolve even further.
Or in Austin versus McMahon.
Exactly, and that was build up. That you knew it was coming one day with those two.
Yeah,
I love that pay per view. I mean, it could go higher, but there's other ones that do way better than that to me.
When I binge watched all the Manias, the one match that stood out to me, other than that, was the dumpster match.
Yeah. Oh man, God, that match.
I actually felt sorry for Terry Funk. That guy just getting thrown around.
Dude, like Terry Funk could take a bump, but he could also take a beating. My God, the man could die. Oh,
the man could die.
I think he could.
Isn't that everyone?
He could. He could die, but in a way, it's like, oh no, he's still taking. I think that was the one Royal Rumble where we saw the 3 faces of Foley.
Yep. The only
Dude Love, Mankind, and Cactus Jack in one night.
Bang bang.
But don't you cringe when you see the first 5 minutes when they're like, they hand the chair, they're like, go.
That was 99.
Oh, that's 98.
No.
No, that's 98.
What?
Royal Rumble 98.
Rock and Mankind?
No.
Oh, no, yeah,
Terry
you're
Funk
right.
and Mick Foley.
Oh, I was
They're
just like,
he's go.
You guys need to stop, please.
I look at that, I'm like, oh, the concussions that you guys must be getting from this.
Concussions, more like fucking brain scramble.
Stevie Richards.
Speaking of scramble matches.
He'll still love that match. He will. So to the Sensational 7.
Sensational 7. This one is in a very weird way kind of up there in my 10 because, it's Survivor Series 2003. This was my first pay-per-view that I got on DVD. And this card had a WrestleMania feel because you had an ambulance match between Shane and Kane. Awesome match. A Buried Alive match between Mr. McMahon and Undertaker. Goldberg versus Triple H. And you had 2 5-on-5 Survivor Series traditional matches. The funny thing is, the people that I wanted to win didn't. But
Like
it's
your picks were like a skewed real bad.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, it's like, look at all what they had to do for their pay-per-views back in the day. Like I said, Survivor Series now is like, yeah, it was good, I guess, decent at best.
No, what it is the whole buildup of Raw versus SmackDown always now.
Yeah.
And that's what kills it, because it's like they don't do the buildup of like there's rivalry within the brands.
Yeah.
No, it's just, let's all get along for once and just see who's the better brand.
I think that's one of the things for me that the pre-brand extension era had going for it, is that everything was tied to each other.
Yeah.
As opposed to now, where then you get to Survivor Series, and instead of having legitimate stakes for any of those matches, it's just, all right, so person from Raw versus person from SmackDown. And you're like, okay, so there's 0 title matches on the card.
Right, yeah.
Your Survivor Series match is just... Why don't we just call it fucking bragging rights, assholes?
God, bragging rights is horrible, by the way.
Like, bragging rights is the pay-per-view you're supposed to be doing that at, not
Yeah.
Survivor Series.
Survivor Series,
So-
you're supposed to stick to the tradition of the 5-on-5s.
To see who survives.
Yeah, and it's better if you do it within the brands. Like, who's the better in Survivor or in Raw or SmackDown? Not, well, Raw's better than SmackDown this year, or SmackDown's better than Raw. It's like, really? Who cares?
I mean,
there's a ghost in here, by the way.
it's the Undertaker.
Gong.
He just finished his
There
match.
you go. Oh god, they're still doing that. The one match that really just stuck out to me, and of course I'm biased, was Team Bischoff versus Team Austin, where if Austin loses, he's gone from the WWE. And Shawn Michaels is in this match, and it comes down to 1 versus 3. Shawn's the one guy on Austin's team, and this is when they bladed and had the full blood. And you see Shawn Michaels just giving everything he's got. He gets one person out. Great. He gets another person out. Thanks to some interference, he loses the match. And you get that post-respect of Shawn goes, I'm sorry I let you down. And Austin, like, gets Shawn Michaels up, and they just kind of walk down the ring. And Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary, everything was just storytelling in this match. When I got this as a 13, 14-year-old on DVD, I'm like, I legitimately felt heartbroken. I'm like, my God, you know? So, yeah, this whole pay-per-view for that and for all the other matches, because it's basically WrestleMania on Survivor Series.
Which is not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my number 7.
Yours?
All right, so a lot of mine are gonna end up being in like the 2001 range.
Okay.
Because that was
One of the greatest years.
Yeah, that
honestly.
was one of my favorite chunks of time. So I got Vengeance 2001 on here. And the reason that I got this one on here is the fact that this kind of cemented the end of everything that came from the invasion, because you did the unification of the world titles. And it's really the biggest selling point for me on this pay-per-view, other than the fact that, like, you got some good matches in there. Edge versus Regal, Jeff versus Matt, Taker versus Rob Van Dam for the hardcore title.
That was good.
Is those the big three matches to fuse the titles. Because you have Steve Austin go over Kurt Angle for the WWF title, and you have that surprise win by Jericho going over The Rock. And then you have Jericho beat Austin, and you're like, wait just a minute. Are we doing this?
I was very surprised by that. I didn't think it could happen.
Was this once again a thing of you were so invested in the story that you didn't care that The Rock lost, or was it like, oh shit?
Yeah, I thought I was like, what? But no, I liked it, and it sent Jericho down a very good trajectory for the rest of his career. I think so, anyway, because he'd sort of been that. This was his crowning moment, I think, welcoming him to the top of the card. Because for the most part, he'd been your 9-time Intercontinental Champion kind of guy.
He was your mid-carder at best, and like second main event match.
But you would admit that this run with the Undisputed Championship was
It
not...
was the overall run was lackluster.
Yeah.
I liked the character shift because you went from the mid card guy who was confident in his shit to this this caricature. He was very cartoonish, and I liked it. and it moved him into a different era of his character, and then we kind of, as the years went on, we got to see what we were talking about,
Yeah.
where he changes sporadically, and every time it's solid.
The thing is with Jericho, like, okay, I found it hard to believe he could go over Austin.
Yeah.
But the fact that Austin did it, it's like, okay, let's see where Jericho goes with this. And as I had recently, because I've recently watched this, and it's like, dude, Jericho is really fucking pulling it off right now.
Yeah.
I like it.
And this was like full low blows and using his feet on the rope, like heel
Always.
going.
Like, he was,
Yeah.
he knows how to be a true heel.
Jericho's a great heel.
Yes.
Like, don't get me wrong, he's good as a face as well, but I think heel Jericho is the greatest.
I don't know if you recall this, but this was Royal Rumble 2002. Like, it's him versus The Rock.
Yeah.
And the finish is, I think, hit with the title belt, low blow, and feet on the bottom rope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
It's
had to
like
do everything
three
he
dirty
could.
tactics all in one. It's like,
But
if you're a heel, that's how you finish a match.
And the thing is, people still knew that, like, oh, you didn't really go over The Rock.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he put you over, but no, you didn't.
Yeah.
He'll tell you to this day, he beats Steve Austin and The Rock on the
The
same
same
night.
night.
But one last thought on this before we shift over is I think that this was a perfect example of what I've talked about, where you shuffle the card a little bit, because then I think we from here this eventually was it the next pay-per-view Triple H fought Jericho, or when was that?
That was
he-
WrestleMania.
It was WrestleMania.
So
Three pay-per-views
so
there.
it leads to that, but
Yeah.
then you kind of shuffle a couple of people out to breathe new blood in, which
Yeah.
is what Jericho was. And so that's another reason that I like this pay-per-view, is because it's an example of sending the card forward in a new
Right.
direction.
So we're going to move a little bit upward in time, and then eventually we're going to bring me back all the way back to my esteemed era. My number 7 is WrestleMania 28.
Wow. Okay.
The reason why is because I think it was one of the greatest Hell in a Cell matches, and unfortunately, the last one that Shawn Michaels technically participated in, but as a special guest referee, to Taker Triple H Part 3, technically.
When did you stop watching before you got back into it?
It was kind of around that time.
Okay.
Just because either I didn't have enough time or because of work or things like that. But I remember catching this pay-per-view and I was like, okay, why is The Rock back when his career in Hollywood has been taking off so well?
Dan?
Why are you back?
You know? And then the whole thing of like, I think CM Punk was still upset he was in the main event at WrestleMania. I
Yeah.
think this was the lead up before the infamous. No, it was after the pipe bomb.
It was after the pipe
Because he
bomb.
said, "Oh, don't worry, like you'll still find a way to have your main event." Blah blah blah. But other than the Hell in a Cell match, that kind of was CM Punk's rise in true stardom. Where no, you should have this guy be your main eventer. Granted, he had one of the best matches with Jericho.
Yeah.
Because you saw true technician versus technician wrestling. The whole Rock versus John Cena thing, though, I was like, really?
Really?
These two? Just because it's like, okay, I couldn't really believe The Rock was like back again.
Oh.
Like The Rock's run at that time was like, I know why you're doing it. And I feel like you're trying to have like your relived Hogan versus you moment. Except you're Hogan this time. And Cena's The Rock. You know what I mean? But you didn't let him go over. You still kicked his ass.
Until next year.
Yep.
And this was the first example of year-long booking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Because they signed the contract the day after 27, and then you get this.
A whole year's worth of build up to what I thought was like, this is it. I wasn't impressed. The Hell in a Cell match was more of my ticket of like, holy shit, this is how we're ending this.
Not to harp on this, but I felt like Undertaker, that's when he should have called it quits. If you were stopping there. 20-0, great match.
You wouldn't have stopped it at 21? Was 21,
Knowing-
was
knowing-
it 21 with CM Punk?
Yeah, but knowing what came after that,
But that's the thing. I would have ended at 21 just because I think CM Punk was worthy of being one of the illustrious 21 to get a match with The Undertaker in Mania. Just because, again, I'm a CM Punk guy. I'm a Brock Lesnar guy. I'm a Paul Heyman guy. I'm just saying. This was one of my like WrestleManias where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of still invested in wrestling, but
Right.
some things about that pay-per-view were jaded.
Now, I have one last question going back to what I mentioned a second ago. How do you guys feel about this year-long booking kind of stuff? This building toward a marquee match? Do you think they should stop trying to do that shit? Or are you guys okay with it?
So, wait. Are you taking a survey?
Yeah, I'm taking a survey.
Hey, yeah. I personally think they need to stop.
Yeah.
Unless it's the right people involved.
Yeah.
Because some of these year-long build-ups can either give you something great or at least to something trash at the end. Like the story, the whole thing leading in the whole year is fine. But if you can't capitalize in the very end and sell it, what was it worth?
Yeah.
You could have done so much more with like what could have happened along the year for everybody else around you.
So you felt like the match didn't deliver what it was supposed to?
No, because I expected more out of John Cena and The Rock.
Did you like the second match better?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Kind of. Not like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing, or it's why are we continuing this? I just thought like, okay, kind of better, but not where I'm sold.
Right.
What do you think?
Your question, Dan, I think going back to Kamisha's point, if it's two full-timers trying to build it, yes. However, I will say this, in 2011, which is a year that we hope to cover in a future episode, they actually had a lot of stars who stepped out of their shells and went into the spotlight. You had your R-Truths, your Miz's, your John Morrisons. So you had
talent was super ripe back then, and it was great.
but everyone kind of got this like breaking ground of like, okay, go,
It's
elevate.
kind of like what it was back in 2001.
Yeah.
Because it's the same good amount of talent, but we're all coming up together. at this
But
point.
at the end of the day, what pisses me off was this twice in a lifetime deal. If you market it as once in a lifetime, leave it at one. John Cena can go home having a defeat against The Rock. You don't have to build it as, oh, he's got to have his triumphant comeback. So, yeah, that's just my personal sentiment about it.
So those are number 7s. Now let's get on with the sensational 6.
Number 6, I love it, but a very, very sore spot for me. WrestleMania 30.
I wonder.
And then...
What happened in WrestleMania 30 again?
Oh, hell no.
I'm just saying.
I mean, you clipped me on this one. If that makes you feel any better,
How so?
I have this one on my list near the top.
Okay. I will just say this. My personal statement, and Dan, if you want, you can hang off until we get to yours so you can share your personal feelings about it.
fine.
But to me, the whole card is great because you had Cesaro, who, oh my God, that pop was great. You felt like, holy shit, they're pulling the trigger with Cesaro.
And then they didn't.
And we're done.
The whole Daniel Bryan story throughout the night where he faces Triple H and then Triple H gets a chair and hurts him. And it's like, yeah, good luck getting to the triple threat. That pop at the end of the night where he finally wins. And I felt it because every time Daniel Bryan came up short on an Elimination Chamber or a Hell in a Cell or whatever, I'm like, really? Just give him the belt.
break.
It was like the Jeff Hardy thing for me.
Yes, but the best part is that they're building it up. Were they? I don't know, because you had the whole Royal Rumble thing going on with Batista winning. But, yeah, just every single match was great. You had AJ Lee, who shut every other diva up in the locker room. You had... Dan, do you have the card pulled up? I'm drawing a blank.
Usos in a fatal 4-way tag. Bryan versus Triple H. Shield versus Kane and the Outlaws.
JBL's like, there goes the Attitude Era, like it's in a 2-minute match.
256, so
There
3
you go.
minute match.
3-minute match.
Cesaro in the Battle Royal.
That was golden.
Cena Wyatt.
No, that once again, Wyatt should have won that match. That's what led to Wyatt's entire downfall.
Keep going.
AJ Lee and the
He skipped
Vicky
it.
Guerrero Battle Royal.
I just give it.
because I wanted to come back to it after this
Okay.
one. And Brock Lesnar defeating The Undertaker.
They have mutual respect for each other. They do. Undertaker's admitted it to him. So has Brock.
I have seen.
I know
You
why
want
it
to do
hurts
this?
you. I know why it hurts you.
I have seen the interviews I've heard where Undertaker felt like someone needed to break it and he was advocating for Brock. And I have heard the story of Brock not wanting to break it, but the boss said, no, we need to break the streak.
Break that motherfucker.
But it still kills you because they decided to break it. And I understand why. I get it. You never want to see one of your heroes lose, especially with what they've built up in their 20-plus year career. I get that.
The worst scripted decision that they've gone with. Because if you want to talk about unscripted, there's a lot out there.
No, there's plenty.
Yeah, but in regards to scripted,
It's the worst.
it's the worst.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay. Dan, you're number 6.
I don't remember where we were. Hold on. Okay, there we go. So, because I had scrolled down my list. So my number 6 is mostly. There's a couple of things on the card, and then mostly because of you don't know what this one is. Shush. Is because of the promotional materials leading up to this one.
I think I know what this is.
This is WrestleMania 21 Goes Hollywood. Because I loved every single fake movie trailer that they put out for this
That was
fucking
awesome.
thing.
I remember that.
It was hilarious.
Tell me about the moves.
Triple H in Braveheart. Everybody in, was it Taxi?
Oh.
Booker T and Eddie in Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction was good. Oh, man.
What did The Undertaker do again?
Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
Do you feel lucky? Well,
Eye
do you?
roll and
Punk.
blast.
Gong. Promotional material for this WrestleMania was fucking amazing. But other than that, you still had a solid card. This one's your first Money in the Bank ladder match. Ray versus Eddie. Taker versus Orton when you have the counter of the tombstone into the finish.
Beautiful.
Kurt versus Shawn.
That's the top 10 for Shawn matches.
One of the most emotional tap outs I've ever seen because Kurt's got that locked in for like a solid 2 minutes and Shawn is just scratching and clawing and just finally
Because
taps.
Shawn never wants to tap. But when he realizes he has to, he will. But the fact that he held on for so long.
And he told a story every second of the way.
I loved it.
Those two are amazing. Akibono versus Big Show.
And don't forget
Oh, man.
Piper's Pit with special guest
I don't remember.
Well, who was the guest?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh. I'm sorry, that segment slipped past me. But then you had John Cena pick up the WWE title off JBL.
One remark I want to make about that match is people think that Cena got watered down in 08 when WWE went PG. I went back and I saw this match. I felt like it was the 2018 version of John Cena wrestling in 05. Because he just gets his ass kicked, does one or two moves that are not a part of the 5 moves of doom, and then just wins the match. Anyway.
But then your big marquee match was
Which we're getting this year too, by the way.
was Batista going over Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship after having won the Rumble that year, I believe. Or was it the other way? Did John win that year or Batista?
But they both did.
Oh, was that the awkward
That
year?
was a fatal decision again. the Shawn Michaels Bulldog decision, as I call it.
The Bret Hart Lex Luger, but we're gonna restart the match this time around scenario.
But all in all, it's just one of my favorite well-rounded cards.
I need to correct myself, sorry.
Just one of my favorite well-rounded cards, and the promo material for it was just awesome.
So, before we go into mine, the fact that we're getting that match again this year in a no-holds-barred, I think it should just be an unsanctioned. Then go at it till there's a pinfall. Do you feel like Batista is coming from a truthful place, or is this all script?
This is all script.
You don't think he really feels the fact that like Triple H was the one that
He
really
doesn't
ran
have
him
to
out?
because after he broke away from Evolution, he found great success. The only time when I say he kind of got screwed and this wasn't a Triple H decision was when he came back. We're gonna turn you face. You're gonna win the Rumble. You're gonna main event Mania. It's like the company. Vince wasn't listening at the time because Daniel Bryan was your one guy. It was like, no, we want Daniel Bryan. We don't want Batista. So I think Batista might have felt robbed at that point, but he's found a lot of success after he broke away from Evolution. So.
I'm saying Batista.
Batista.
So this is super nostalgia. I don't know if you guys have seen this pay-per-view. SummerSlam 96. What happened?
Undertaker versus Undertaker?
No.
Oh, that was 94. Sorry.
This was when we were introduced slowly into the Attitude Era. The first ever Boiler Room Brawl. Undertaker versus Mankind. The fact that you show the Undertaker can be weak against someone was a selling point to me. It's like, okay, this guy is unstoppable. Yeah, he could lose a match, but it's always in some weird angle. It's never
Paul
like
Bearer
a
turned on
legitimate,
him, right?
Yeah, that's the first time you see Paul Bearer leave the Undertaker. But it's like you find it hard to believe that the Undertaker could be weak against anyone. I love that match. As horrible as a match as it is, and it's still something that it's like, it's violent, it transitions into something great, but it's, yeah.
And it's not in the ring.
Exactly.
It's outside storytelling.
And then, what else? Shawn Michaels versus Vader. And what was, first, double disqualifications, and Jim Cornette constantly, you're never going to beat him. I want you to really see if you can do it, if you have any guts. Because you see how much Jim Cornette just shows, he's not scripting. He's legitimately like, oh, I don't like you. Prove you can beat my guy. And he did with a moonsault. Which out of all things, I'm like, okay, can't beat him with sweet chin music, but if you jump off the top rope, that's how you beat him?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Is this where they were going to pull the trigger on Vader, but then Shawn was like...
I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
That's why Jim Cornette did what he did.
And did something happen in the match where Shawn was just pissed off?
Yeah.
Where he jumps off the top rope, lands right next to Vader, and then just stomps him? I forget, something like that happened where Shawn was like, no, I'm not giving the belt to this guy. And that's where Vader's push was like...
Yeah, it's where Shawn buried him, and that's what I didn't like, because it's like, come on, man, like, you can give him the push. It wouldn't be a problem, but it's, I guess, like, something went wrong during the match where he just was like, I'm fucking over
And
this.
Shawn's, like, control at that time was just...
Well, it was at an all-time high at that point. I don't know, that one goes down as one of my, like, top, or in the bottom top 10, just because of the Boiler Room Brawl, mostly. Because that also started creating, I think, one of the greatest storylines between The Undertaker and Mankind.
Yes.
It led to another really fucking weird match with the Buried Alive match. Undertaker coming back as a fucking bat. And then years later, we get one of the greatest Hell in a Cell matches. But yeah, that's my number 6.